appearance of newly minted Deputy City Manager Pat Robinson. Pat, thanks very, very much for being here. I know you're busy, and congratulations on your new position.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for your time, number one. And just for the record, it's interim Deputy City Manager. So the chief might still be stuck with me. We don't know how this is going to go in a couple weeks. So she's keeping my chair warm over there just in case it all goes sideways. But I can tell you, I'm thrilled to have a chance to talk with you guys and kind of learn what's important to your organization, because you are such a huge part of our downtown core and Sarasota City as a whole. So I'm here to discuss whatever you'd like. And if I don't have an answer, I will find someone that will have the answer for you.
Thank you, Pat. Like many of the people who are on this call, I've had the pleasure of working with you on many different issues in your former capacity, and it's always been a pleasure. So I was really pleased personally to see that you will be involved in the city, even though I know that there are those who weren't too hate to lose you. You'll get to talk. That's the chief. You survived your first city commission meeting on Monday. I don't see any outward scars.
Just
how do you feel that your history as a police officer, and also particularly as a police officer in a command position, will help you in your position as a leader of the city?
Absolutely, that's a great question. You know, and I said a little bit about, number one, first, it was this whole experience thus far has been incredibly eye-opening for me. For those of you on the call that have been in local government and have been behind the scenes and really been involved with the development, implementation of the legislative side of this, you know, over the last 2.5 weeks, I've had my eyes open to so many different processes, and you don't know what you don't know. And I can tell you that from my perspective, and in conversation with the interim city manager, you know, he's got a great agenda, and I think he's got a lot of really good ideas and some things to make customer service a #1 priority to all of our citizens, kind of streamlining some of our processes moving forward to ensure that concerns are getting to the appropriate department. And that's not just the short term, but also the long term. Bringing some of the associated divisions under one roof to ensure that you will have a quote unquote one-stop shop if you have issues for our contractors and business persons for licensing. But to answer your question, you know, I spent 21 years and 2 months in uniform at the SPD, which, you know, just so invaluable to see what works and what doesn't work on so many different levels. And really where I think my strength is going to be drawn from in reference to this position, and Eileen, you spoke about it a little while ago, is I've had the opportunity, because of Chief Pepino, to be put in a position to develop relationships within our community that I'm going to be drawing on as I move forward in this position. But again, going back to it, you know, I've seen a lot of crazy things in this town, you know, and not just the fact that I worked at SPD, but I actually grew up in this community. I grew up just south of the city limit. For all of those that you know, Demetrios, I literally grew up on the other side of 41 from Demetrios, and I spent a lot of time downtown when Hollywood 20 was started. I never got a civil citation for skateboarding. I just want to throw that out there on the record. But I've seen this town develop since, you know, my formative years in the 80s, and really seen when I could drive in the 90s and came downtown and went to the beach and went to Lido, and what it was and what it is and where it's going. I think that's invaluable to me in my position. But, you know, we were, and the city, the SPD continues to be the largest portion of the general fund budget. So I've had the opportunity to work with the chief on our budget, which is excellent experience for just the budgeting process here. Plus, I have to be honest with you, coming over to the city side of this, and we're going to be trying really hard to break down that wall between sort of the philosophical SPD city. They really are one thing. And being over here now, it's so evident that the SPD is such an integral part of our successes as a city, and the city is such an integral part of the SPD's success. And I think that hopefully in my position with my experience and relationships on both sides of this, I'll be able to bridge some of those you know, misconceptions as we move forward in this in our governmental endeavors.
You know, before I open it to board questions, I'm going to selfishly ask you something that you and I had talked about, and that's code compliance.
Yes, ma'am.
We talked about this a year ago when I was on the planning board, and then it became a big issue. You've now sat through the Selby hearings, or you sat through some of the Selby hearings. I don't think you had the pleasure of, 18 to 20 hours of them, but, and you saw the number of conditions that are put on different ordinances. You get this zoning change if you promise to do these 14 things. That's a type of code compliance that needs some looking at. And then I think your idea of code compliance need was a little bit different. Was it more things that were on the North Trail? Am I getting that correct? Or
Well, I think that, code compliance is a different issue no matter where you are geographically. The issue that is being addressed, at the PD, and and I won't take the chief's opinion away from her on this, but we deal with or we were dealing with a very specific set of circumstances that we would ask code compliance to address. Now, being over on this side, it's a much deeper conversation related to code enforcement, and then get into the conversation about zoning text amendments and a lot of the different provisions that are getting added on to some of these projects. I think that it's, I hate to say that my understanding of the code compliant process when I was across the street was much more, I will say, simplistic from where I was sitting, where it was like problem, solve problem, period. And I think it can get that way, but I think we need to take a look at how, number one, code compliance is staffed, the hours of operation that they're working, and ensure that they're really taking care of things that are really of concern to our constituents and really our bosses, which are the citizens.
if there's anything we can do to assist with that, please call on us. There's several of us who are interested in that issue. I'm going to open it up to the board now. Do members of the board have questions for Pat? Everyone's busy watching television, I think.
Hearing none, we'll move on to the chief.
Patrick.
Yes, sir. And then Mr. Robinson, I appreciate the opportunities we've had in the past to work together, and I really look forward to your role here. And I especially like the opening where you said that under Mr. Brown's leadership, a stronger focus on customer service, and you mentioned something like one-stop shopping. And I think that's important for businesses and developers, but will there be a expansion of that to include the residents, and especially the 10,000 plus residents living in the downtown Sarasota neighborhood?
Absolutely.
So
One of the,
specifically, I'm sorry, we have brought up the issue of gaining back a neighborhood services manager. There used to be somebody, a general manager, that's been gone. And transparency of services, of systems. So those are key issues that we'd like to have follow-ups and opportunities to really get into.
Absolutely. And Eileen, after the meeting, if we could just circle back at some point, just so I can make sure that I've got everything that needs to be followed up on, I'd appreciate that.
Absolutely.
I probably won't be able to read my handwriting later. So one of the things that you'll notice, and if you sat on the actual through the commission meeting, there's a lot of conversation about reduction in staffing or staffing hiring freezes and budget reduction over the next fiscal year. So keeping that in mind and trying to limit the size of government to ensure that our tax base remains stable. One of the things, and the chief and I have had multiple conversations about technology being a force multiplier. One of the things that we're currently looking into is and I can't remember the name of it, and I apologize. Actually, my assistant Kathy popped in and said, "Are you going to be on the?" Oh, gosh, it's an acronym, but it's a web-based platform and application, and the chief has brought this up numerous times, where citizens will be able to see an issue, click on the issue, report the issue. So not have to go through email, not to have to go through, and it'll be directed to the right division to ensure that it's not only addressed, but then there's feedback provided. And Chief, I'm not going to steal your thunder on that, but I know that's the chief has been talking about that literally for 2 years. And I think in so much as that's concerned, technology really can be a win for us in that regard, because if we were to appropriate additional staffing to facilitate those things, not only do you have to hire the individual, but you also have the roll-up cost and I'm not saying that it's 100%, because there's nothing that you can take away from having somebody actually physically there dealing with it, but at least for the reporting requirements or the reporting process on the front end to streamline that, so somebody doesn't have to wait for, 2 or 3 days for their concerns to work its way through the email chain to get to an individual. One of the things that I've been shocked about coming over here, again, what you don't know, I thought I got a lot of emails when I was at the police department. I can assure you that I wake up in the morning at about 4:30, I have a cup of coffee, I start my email routine then, and when I get home after my son goes to bed, he's 10, so he gets in there a little early, about 8 o'clock, and then I sit down again and go through emails from the afternoon that I didn't catch up with. So it is a lot of digital foot traffic. So if we can cut that down and really target that into an application that it just gets forwarded to the appropriate parties, I think that's going to streamline a lot of our customer service issues. And then the follow-up on the back end to ensure that it's getting taken care of.
That sounds like something that will cover many different topics. So
but Patrick, I will follow up on the general services manager for you and see where we're at with that.
There were a whole series of things that Eileen led us, the board, through a fairly lengthy strategic planning session this past fall. And from that developed a set of our committee goals for the organization with action plans, not dissimilar to how city staff do their annual planning and so forth. And what came out of that was a fairly comprehensive set of goals, actions, strategies, but many of those involved working with the city. And given the new administration here, it might be appropriate to find a way in the next few weeks to actually have some sort of meeting to review and align those. And I think out of that might come a little better appreciation for some of the issues that are arising more in the context of how we're trying to move things forward to better enhance the environment for our residents.
Absolutely.
Then I'll get back.
Yep.
I'll get back to you, Patrick, and we can try to, both Patricks, I should say, and we can try to set up some kind of a Zoom meeting with just a couple of people and see what we can help you, and you can assist us as well.
Absolutely. Whatever I can do to assist.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? David Lowe.
Yeah, sorry, my name isn't coming up. I can't fix that.
You're coming
David
up
Lowe
as
here,
unlicensed room.
Nice
Yeah.
to meet you, sir.
Hello, absolutely. I get your emails.
I'm in the Rosemary district, and one of the key wants and needs of our now 3,400 people is more trees. Developers, we've got numerous projects going on, and Mark Miller helped me put together a spreadsheet showing over 200 trees are going to be cut down associated with this new development. Now, granted, some trees get replanted, but oftentimes they're in courtyards or out of view. And one of the things I'm really happy about is Dan Ornstein is working on a new engineering design criteria manual chapter that addresses the issue of trees in the right-of-way. But as I've worked on an ad hoc basis on a couple of projects, I found that trees are really a complicated topic for citizens to get around because it involves the engineering department, planning, utilities, the arborist, and even parks and rec. And it seems to me from firsthand experience that nobody kind of owns trees, so as to speak. And I know because of the budget situation, it's unlikely that such a person or whatever could even be considered. But I would urge the city that there's got to be some glue between that so it's a little less fragmented, if you will. I know it's a complicated subject. The other thing is, if we are going to be more committed to trees and rights of way, we have to get the utilities folks on side. And I realize there are real issues and expensive issues sometimes, but trees, if some utilities need to be relocated, that may be just the cost of living in a greener city. So I'd like to leave you with the message of, I think there's a real opportunity with Dan and this new criteria manual, but I would urge, I think, to your point of making things somewhat more efficient, that maybe it could be better defined as authority and responsibilities within your team. So I think everybody's well-meaning, but one key thing is the utilities folks respectfully have to be part of the team and have a degree of commitment to the trees not as a annoyance, but as a part of a beautiful city. So I'd appreciate your help on that. I think
Absolutely. And I think that I have been very, and again, I apologize in advance, but I never thought I would talk about trees as much as I have in the last couple of weeks. So I think to your point, I think you're correct. There are a lot of people discussing these programs. And I think that one of the conversations that, because it generally is falling under Mr. Cover's umbrella at the moment, I believe, in planning. In my conversations as part of some of the urban forestry program and the canopy programs. And then Lucia has taken over from Tim Litchett, who Tim was kind of the tree guru. But I think as once Mr. Brown takes his, or as we always say in law enforcement, he gets his bars, and they make them full. I think that there are already plans going on to sort of streamline those programs to ensure that the appropriate amount of attention is being paid to these things. Because to your point, sir, if we're not paying attention to it, it's falling behind, and then somebody's going to forget about it and ends up being a cliff note in a different program. And then that's really not what we want to see happen.
yeah, and it from the money standpoint, I think there's something like $425,000 in the tree replacement fund, and it's just kind of gathering dust. So, and it can only be used to plant the trees. So we're committed, this board and other boards, to working with the city as closely as we can without being annoying, but we'd like to be part of a team to get some more stuff done if we could.
Absolutely, sir.
Are there any other questions from the board? Any questions from any of the guests? Ted Wilson, unmute yourself, please. You're still muted.
There I am.
There
Okay.
you go.
I'm Mr. Robertson, Ted Wilson.
Sir?
I live downtown in the Regency House. I'm also a member of the prep board. And my question is, the city, as you may know, has over 20 plus advisory boards. A few of them are locked in by ordinance or constitutional requirements, such as the planning board and so forth and so on. But and also realizing that the other advisory boards all have to be staffed by city employees of one form or another. In your streamlining program, are you planning on consolidating some of those boards, eliminating some of them, or what are your ideas on those advisory boards?
I believe during the latter portion of the commission meeting on the 4th, there was some discussion about an overall review by, I believe it was, the motion was made by the mayor at the time, to really start looking at that, because we do understand that there is we're also moving to 2 meetings a week. So we'll be doing a Monday, Tuesday, twice a month now. And I think there is some room to take a look at some of these boards and ensure that we are not duplicating efforts or triplicating efforts, and ensure that we actually have, because look, at the end of the day, and the chief and I were just talking about it, there are a lot of people that really want to be involved in things, and we don't want to waste people's time. So I think we are going to do a review of those advisory boards to ensure that they are meeting the criteria that need to be met, and that we're able to appropriate the right people to be on those boards, and that they're slated with the right department. So I do believe that is going to take place, sir.
Thank you, Ted. I am trolling through the photos that I can see. If anyone else has a question, please ask it now. Hearing none at this point, Pat, I want to thank you.
I think Jim's got one.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jim, I didn't see you. I'm sorry, go ahead. Unmute yourself, please.
Certainly. I just wish you well. I think you've got a great background, and Marlon has been sitting in second position for quite a while, and I hope and wish you much success working with Marlon and maybe improving the culture of the city. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thanks. Thank you, Jim. I've had the opportunity to have fantastic supervisors over the last few years. Obviously, you're going to get to hear from my longest serving supervisor, Chief DePino here. So I've been incredibly lucky to take the things that she's taught me about her management style and her leadership and what we've done with the police department. And I can tell you, from someone that spent almost, well, 13 years before the chief got there. The change in the organization that the chief has appropriated through her selection process, her driving force, her consistent managerial pressure and leadership is absolutely astounding. The things that the men and women of the police department are now doing that they should have been doing 10 years ago is nothing short of amazing. And I know there's always going to be room for improvement. And I know the chief would agree with me on that, but I can tell you that I'm still proud to be part of the organization. And I will continue to be involved through Chief DePino and the agency in our public safety. I'm going to have a more overreaching directive as far as public safety is concerned with emergency management, technology, security, as well as working with the chief to ensure that her legacy, no matter how long she decides to stay, continues in the right direction. And I'm here to support her and the men and women of that organization. Yes, Jim.
Jim?
I'm glad you said that, Mr. Robinson, because what is astounding is to we condo owners who live facing the bayfront, and I believe there are about 19 condo owners and several hundred petitioners. What's astounding is the constant ear-breaking noise from the souped-up cars and the constant speeding for the stretch that goes around Mound Street from Orange all the way across to Bird Key Park. And this is not an overnight thing. It's not a new thing. It's been going on since Bob Bartolotta was here, but it seems to be gotten worse. So there is a petition circulating. I'm sure you'll see it soon. I know the police chief reports to you in Marlin. So I hope that you would work with Chief DePino and actually giving real enforcement and not just warnings, because warnings aren't getting the message out. Thank you.
What did you write in your email, Jim? Although draconian, very effective. Yes. Is that right?
You got, yes, thank you.
I can tell you this without hesitation, that not only have we overtly discussed this numerous times, not only before I left the 2099 Adams and came over to, gosh, what's the address here? 1565 First Street. I think I got that right. It is a constant point of conversation, and we are working on things, and I'll let the chief kind of describe her efforts on that because I don't want to steal her thunder. But we're not only working on the enforcement side, we're also working on the I don't want to say septet is the wrong word, but the designs and some of the signage and some of the issues that have been brought up by some of your members. And the chief has been tirelessly working on appropriating some of those ideas and enforcement strategies. So more to follow, and I'll let the chief follow up on that because I don't want to steal her thunder because she has put her and the traffic unit and her staff have put in a lot of effort on that. So more to follow, but it's not going away. We know about it.
Thank you, Pat. And Jim. Thank you again for spending some time. I know you're up to your eyeballs in trying to catch up with everything. So we really, really appreciate it. You're certainly welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting and enjoy all the fabulous discussion. But you probably want to get home and put your.
Oh no, trust me. I have a couple other meetings I've got to be at. So
I'm so sorry.
No worries. But I would love to sit down with you in the small group that you talked about. If you'd like to sit down in person or do Zoom and kind of go over your goals and objectives, I would love to be part of that conversation. And anything that we can do to Mr. Gannon, I can't call you Patrick because it's just, I feel like I'm talking to myself. Mr. Gannon's ideas to ensure that we're facilitating what we can facilitate for our residents, because that's really what this is about.
Really appreciate that. And I will be in touch.